Welcome, everybody. Good to see everybody here tonight. I wish we had enough chairs. Obviously, we don't. We'd ask you guys just to bear with us as best we can. As you guys know, this is kind of a unique forum in that the questions don't come from where you sit or where you stand, as the case may be, but rather they come from the cards that were written before as you guys came in. These questions are not vetted. They're not edited by me or anybody in the UPCCA. They come from you. They're getting an opportunity for these candidates to respond to them. All right, with that, we're going to have opening statements.
My name's Rob Woodall. I'm the 7th District Congressman. If you don't know the 7th District, it's Gwinnett and Forsyth counties. Just out of curiosity, where are my Gwinnetians here tonight? All right, thank you. Thank you for being here. Where are my Forsythians here tonight? Thank you all for being here too. This is a fantastic district. I've had the pleasure of representing this district for 7 years now, and I will tell you that this district looks today the way America's going to look in about 10 or 15 years, and that is nothing but good news. Now there's absolutely a challenge. In which direction do we want to see America move? Do we want to see America move from the top going down, or do we want to see America move from our district experiences and successes going up? We've had a lot of success over the last 7 years pushing ideas from right here in Georgia up to Washington, D.C. I look forward to talking about all of those issues tonight. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you for taking an interest in all of these races.
Thank you to the Peachtree Corner Civic Association. Thanks to you guys so much for coming. My name is Carolyn Bordeaux, and I am running for the 7th Congressional District. I live in Suwanee with my 6-year-old son and my husband. I teach at the Andrew Young School of Policy Studies at Georgia State. I've worked in a number of roles in the public sector. I have served as legislative aide for several congressmen and for a senator. I was director of Georgia's Senate Budget and Evaluation Office during the Great Recession. I founded the Center for State and Local Finance. I am running for office, though, because I think our healthcare system is badly broken, and I think the choices made by folks in Washington have made it much, much worse. I am also running because we have a president that is corrupt, and we have a Congress that is in hock to special interests and has been corrupted by them as well. And I think we need a change. And I look forward to talking about the change that we need in the evening to come. Thank you.
First of all, thanks to you, the Civic Association. I really appreciate them doing this again. I'm State Senator Fran Miller. I've had the good fortune to be the state senator at it for the last 8 years. In fact, I worked with Tom Rice, and we passed the legislation that gave you the right to become a city. That's why you're all standing in this room tonight. And but I will tell you, I've also worked with various officials in Gwinnett State Schools. With Superintendent Wilbanks. I have worked with, obviously, Charlotte Nash, the commissioners here, the mayor, and I've been endorsed, I guess, by all of them except maybe one. The most important endorsement was probably from Debbie Mason. But I will tell you, this is an interesting contrast, this election. It's not about D.C. politics. It's not about presidential tweets. It's about who best will serve the people in Gwinnett, Fulton, and DeKalb County. I've got a record of performance, okay? I've been there. I deal with solutions. I'm a straight shooter, and I very much appreciate you all being here tonight. We look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me in the back of the room? Yes. Good, thank you. I am Sally Harrell, and I am the Democratic nominee for State Senate District 40. I am not new to politics. I actually served in the Georgia House of Representatives from 1999 to 2005. So Senator Miller and I actually spent 6 years in the House together. We started as freshman legislators together. I left politics after 6 years to raise my 2 young children. Senator Miller is actually in my baby videos.
Don't go there, that's not good. It's not me too, just for
Those babies are now 17 and 18 years old, so I'm almost done. Actually, I'm working hard to try to get them off to college. I've lived in DeKalb County for 30 years. I live with my husband and my 2 children. I live in unincorporated DeKalb County, so I'm interested in learning from you what the cityhood process has been like. I have a bachelor's degree from Georgia State University and a Master of Social Work from the University of Georgia. I have experience in nonprofit management as well as child welfare policy and mental health policy. And I also served on the Georgia budget policy. Thank you very much for having me here tonight.
Good evening, Peachtree Corners. I'm Matt Reeves. I'm here tonight to ask for your support to be your next state senator in District 48, which is David Schaefer's old seat. My wife, Suzette, my two daughters are here tonight. Suzette, raise your hand. My son hit the showers after sports practice, so he'd be losing votes if he was here. But we live right up Peachtree Industrial Boulevard in Duluth, and we love Peachtree Corners. I want to thank UPCCA for saving Simpson Wood. That was a great effort that you did. I announced to the media earlier today, but I get to do it in front of you in person. I'm honored to have the support of U.S. Senator Johnny Isakson in this race. Before he was Georgia's senior senator, he was a state legislator and chairman of the state school board. I am so honored to have his support. He won this district in 2016, and I appreciate his support. But you know whose support I want? That is yours. I am honored to be here. I care about our local community and quality of life, and I want to fight fiercely for Peachtree Corners down at the Capitol. I'd be honored to earn your support. VoteMattReeves.com. Thank you.
I'd like to read this letter on behalf of my old friend Zara Rinchek. She writes to say she gives special thanks to the United Peachtree Corners Civic Association, as well as those of you in attendance at the candidate forum tonight. The work that all of you do is invaluable to the people of this district. I'm so sorry that I could not be with you tonight. I'm running to bring new leadership to the state capitol by focusing on better schools, transportation options, and safer neighborhoods. As an Air Force Academy graduate, military veteran, former federal prosecutor, and whistleblower attorney, I bring a lifetime of service and leadership to the legislature. From my humble beginnings in rural Georgia, I learned the values of integrity, honesty, hard work, and selflessness. These are the values that were honed through my service in the Air Force and are the foundation of my collaborative leadership style and commitment to my community. My services continued throughout my career as an attorney. As a federal prosecutor, I worked to bring justice to those who committed crimes, to include human traffickers, child predators, and fraudsters. Today, I represent government whistleblowers, where I've saved taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars while promoting transparency and exposing corruption. My two daughters inspired me to run. During the 2016 election, they observed that no one is being kind to each other, and you, Mom, have to do something to bring us together. They are right. Politics has turned too divisive and partisanship runs deep. I'm running to bridge the political divide and to restore trust, ethics, and civility back into our public discourse. In the state Senate, I will work with all of my constituents, Democrats, Republicans, and otherwise, to move our state forward. I ask you for your vote and for your support on November 6th. With your vote, I will fight to protect you, your family, and our neighbors. Thanks very much.
I would have had a lot of fun reading that. This is awesome. I mean, this is why I love Peachtree Corners, because our community comes together, and this matters. And you guys take the time to research and get to know the candidates. As a former president of UPCCA, I'm so excited to see this organization continue to do great things. First, I must apologize for the hot air. Anytime you get this many politicians in one room, there's going to be a lot of hot air. But my name is Scott Hilton. I've had the honor of serving you down at the State House for the last 2 years. During that short time, I've managed to pass 6 pieces of legislation. I've been appointed Deputy Whip of the House and done a number of other things for you. And so, before I even thought about running, I was a community servant, a community organizer, if that's not a bad word, right here in Peachtree Corners, serving you side by side. And it's great to see so many familiar faces. But I want to go back, because there's still a lot of work we need to do around healthcare transparency, public safety, and education. And so therefore, I ask for your vote on November 6th for Scott Hilton. Thank you.
Hello everybody, my name is Beth Moore and I am the Democratic candidate for House District 95. I am a wife, a Peachtree Corners homeowner, and when I'm not running for office, I am an entertainment attorney representing clients in Georgia's booming music, film, and television industry. I am a child of Peachtree Corners, having graduated from Wesleyan right here in the district. From Wesleyan, I went on to UGA to earn 2 undergraduate degrees in Georgia State, where I earned my law degree. I'm running because 2016 was a wake-up call to many of us that if we do not participate in our government, we are going to end up with unfortunate choices on the ballot, or in the case of this seat, no choice at all in the general election. So I am asking for your vote in November. Thank you so much.
Well, I want to thank every single one of you for being here and listening to what we have to say about representing you. I come from this group, and it's the only time I actually get nervous because it means so much to me that I get across what it is to serve you and what it is to, okay, I'm trying. And it's just wonderful to be here. I'm Lynette Howard. I am District 2 County Commissioner, and there's lots that we have done together, and there's lots that we're going to go forward and do together. So I'm excited about it. I love all of the wonderful faces in here, and the eager faces, the new faces. It's wonderful. So please, if you haven't gotten your question in, I don't know if they had a chance to, but get your questions in because this is important. It's important to, I believe that this race is the closest to home. This is what decides your parks. This is what decides your libraries, your roads, your sewer system, everything. And so that's closest to home. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you again for being here. My name is Benku, and I'm also running to be your next county commissioner. I'm a Georgia native and the grandson of Chinese immigrants who came to Georgia to help engineer the original MARTA rail. I grew up looking at slices of MARTA rail in my grandfather's house because he got awards being the lead project engineer on that project. I'm so proud that now we have one of the safest transit systems in the entire country. I hope to continue my grandfather's legacy by bringing rapid transit to Gwinnett. Yesterday would have been both of my grandfather's birthdays, and my mother's father was a World War II veteran in the Air Force. He also worked for the FBI, and like me, he was a small business owner. I'm a software engineer with over 20 years of entrepreneurial and development experience. I was honored last year that the county gave me the Distinguished Service Award for the most volunteered hours. And so I hope to bring a unique and forward-thinking perspective to the Board of Commissioners. Thank you.
Be for the congressional race. I'm 60 years old and hope to retire in 5 years. I keep hearing Paul Ryan talking about Medicare and Social Security cuts. What will you do to ensure that the rug isn't pulled out from under me?
So yes, I had 2 parents. They passed away last year, and they were very, very dependent on Social Security and on Medicare. And I very much support making sure that that program is available for all of us and for all of our grandchildren, and I will fight for that. What has happened in Washington, though, is they recently passed a tax bill that ran up the national debt by an additional $2 trillion. We are now carrying $21 trillion of debt. That's $174,000 per taxpayer. And now the leadership in Congress and our congressman is saying, oh my goodness, we don't have enough money for Medicare and for Social Security. But I think we do. I think we need to go back and revisit that tax bill and put that money back so that we can pay for our seniors. Thank you.
There are a lot of issues that folks can disagree about, and it turns out there's a grain of truth in almost all of them. But I will tell you, Paul Ryan has never advocated for cutting Social Security and Medicare. He has advocated for doing what the nonpartisan Medicare and Social Security trustees have said, which is all the money we've put in isn't enough to make it work. Tax receipts today have never been higher in the history of America. The problem is not low tax receipts. The problem is over-promising to generations like mine. The time to make that change is now.
Ms. Harold, you'll get the first question. Are you in favor of allowing the state to set start and end dates for school, or do you think it should be left up to the local district?
The question is about start and end dates for school. I guess this has been an issue because the school start date has creeped up earlier and earlier so that we're going to school the first week of August. There's also the issue of balanced calendars. There's a strong lobby at the Capitol to delay school start until after Labor Day so that the industry, the entertainment industry and all the pools and everything can have good hours. I really think that's a local decision because things are so different from the rural areas to the urban areas that I really do think that's a local school board decision.
We've debated this issue for the last 20 years, I think, and obviously has an effect on tourism, but we also have another factor that's come into play that we're all cognizant of now. Your air conditioning bills.
Hold the mic closer. Hold the mic closer.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah, just closer.
Can I start again?
Yeah, for sure.
I said this particular issue has been debated for about 20 years. And as well as the tourism industry on the coast, which we'd like to see later start dates, we also have the factor of these kids at schools at the end of July, beginning of August, about the utility costs. And it's right, wrong, or indifferent. That's one of the things to be considered. There's actually a study committee on this subject right now. We're going to get a recommendation from them. Quite frankly, can't tell you how I would vote at this point. I would like to see a lot of states have done this and said, okay, let's have a starting date, but they don't determine an ending date, and they don't determine the rest of the calendar. That may be something we follow. I'm just not sure how it's going to play out at this point. Thank you.
Mr. Reeves? I guess you're going to get a minute every question. Would you support a religious freedom bill similar to the 2016 version?
The 2016 version, I want to say on this issue, I want to be the #1 most pro-business state senator in the Georgia State Senate, 56 senators. So when we talk about controversial issues, whether it's religious freedom or any other ones, I want to make sure that our brand on business stays #1 in business. We've been #1 in business for 5 straight years. I want to keep that going by being pro-business and attending to other matters. On this issue, I think we need to be very careful. There is a federal Religious Freedom Restoration Act that Senator Sam Nunn, that then Congressman Nathan Deal, that President Bill Clinton signed in the 1990s, and there's 25 years of jurisprudence in that area. It protects minority religious viewpoints, and I know in this district there are people who've moved here from America seeking religious freedom as well as the freedom to do business. Here in America, the American way is to do both. So my answer on this is this. I think we need to be careful when we legislate to only legislate if it's necessary. And we need to keep our brand. We need to protect both business and people's religious freedom. So the federal version, but we need to look after our local governments to make sure they understand it and that it's acceptable to them. So the federal version.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves.
Thank you.
Ms. Moore, you're up. Will you work to have Georgia join the 33 other states that have expanded Medicaid coverage to provide basic health insurance for low-income individuals and families?
Absolutely yes. Not only do we have a moral obligation to make sure that every Georgian has access to life-saving health care and prescription drug benefits, this Medicaid expansion covers working Georgians. And not only that, it would bring back billions of dollars into the state of Georgia. Those are your federal tax dollars that you have already sent to Washington that are ready to come back into the state. But unfortunately, our current leadership down in the legislature has said no thanks to your money coming back into the state. That would also help create 56,000 good-paying jobs in healthcare. So the Medicaid expansion is not only the right thing to do, it is the economically smart thing to do.
So
when we talk about Medicaid, let's just outline some stats real quick. 1.9 million Georgians are on Medicaid right now. That's 1 in 6 Georgians. 55% of all live births in Georgia are done through Medicaid. We spend as a state $2.8 billion on Medicaid right now. That's almost 10% of our budget. Sure, we can expand it, but the real answer is how do we pay for it? Because the federal match is going to drop off eventually, and that's going to leave a big hole, a $500 million hole in our budget. We have to balance our budget as a state. So do we reduce transportation spending? Do we reduce public safety? Do we reduce education? Right now in Georgia, we have 8,000 special needs people who have disabilities who have been approved for a now waiver but are not receiving Medicaid. If we're going to expand it, let's expand it to the people who are most vulnerable and need it the most.
Mr. Kerr, you're up. How do we know, what will you do to ensure that Gwinnett's tax dollars won't be used to pay for MARTA somewhere else?
Well, if you look at the Connect Gwinnett plan and the MARTA contract right now, all the money that's raised in Gwinnett stays in Gwinnett. So that plan has already been approved by MARTA, surprisingly, that's actually extremely favorable to Gwinnetians. So we've already done the work to do that, and we can make sure that we have a representation on MARTA board as part of this MARTA referendum in March. So we need to get out and vote for this referendum, and we need people in office who will fight for transit in Gwinnett.
Thank you so much. We worked really hard on that. We worked through the legislature to pass House Bill 730, and we worked on a contract with MARTA. I don't know if you've gotten a chance to read this awesome contract. It's a historic contract. For every penny that's collected, 29% of it will go directly to MARTA to work on the bus system and getting that up and running in a better way than Gwinnett County can do it, because we're not good at that. And the other part of it, the 71%, will stay here in Gwinnett County with the approval of Gwinnett County citizens. So we all get to decide if this is what we want to do. If we want to do this contract, it will happen in March. So get out and vote for that.
All right, so now we're going to start back down here at the end. Congressman, this question's for you. Ms. Bordeaux, you'll have 30 seconds here to start. Congressman, what is your position on Dreamers?
The Dreamer legislation has come to the House floor twice in the 7 years that you've lent me your voting card. I voted yes both times. There absolutely has to be part of immigration policy in America that we want the best and the brightest to locate in America. That is our philosophy as we go out and give out H-1B visas and others across the land. So if we have those folks who are already right here among us, we should absolutely let them be in that line. But I have families that have done everything right, and their children are trapped in a failing immigration system too. And what we cannot do is allow families that have at one point breached the law to get in line in front of other families that have been doing everything America has asked them to do. We got not one Democratic vote on 2 bills that would have put this issue behind us instead of keeping it political going forward.
The question was about the Dreamers, and absolutely I support them. I have run in, I think we have about 3,000 young folks in this district who the only thing that differentiates them from our own children is that they don't have a social security number. And so they are not able to get a job, they are not able to pay in-state tuition. So yes, I support a clear and quick path to citizenship for them. And I also, though, yes, we need to deal with the folks who have played by the rules and make sure that they have a quick path to citizenship as well. Thank you.
Senator Miller, 44 million people in this U.S. are struggling to repay student loans with an average debt load of $35,000 apiece. Is this the next financial crisis?
That is a great question, and my answer is this. For the first time in this state, as most of you know, we have the Hope Scholarship. It is a merit-based scholarship. I passed legislation this past year, a framework in order to get needs-based aid for lower-income students in order to get scholarships in this state. There's a requirement that will be probably in that bill. It's going to require that the young person either do volunteerism or work. Because I don't believe in handouts, whether they have to work 10 hours a week or not. But they need to participate in it. This is going to be a great program. If we put $40 million into the program, which I think we can, because we can now tax Amazon sales. If you just heard, we're supposed to get $200 million for that. If we do this, we can provide 25,000 more credentials in this state, and we can fill the job that we brought here and why we're #1 in doing business. Thank you.
Oh boy, I'm getting ready to send kids to college now. I have read that scholarship, that needs-based scholarship, is just $1,500. I recently went with my children to the bookstore to buy their books for the dual enrollment program, and 3 books came to $1,000. I kid you not. So I don't think $1,500 is going to go very far. This is a very serious problem that we need to take a harder look at.
Mr. Reeves, do you support Medicaid expansion?
No, I do not. I believe that Medicaid was a promise made decades ago for children, for the disabled, for pregnant women, and for low-income seniors. I think we need to honor that promise that was made. I think that we do need to get back to the doctor-patient relationship, and we need to care for needy Georgians who do not have insurance. There are 4 Republican state senators who are doctors. One of them, Dean Burke, is from represents 8 counties in southwest Georgia, where I was from. Suzette's also from South Georgia originally. Dr. Burke has already started taking the lead on this. I saw Senator Unterman here earlier. We need to look, and she's a nurse, we need to listen to our healthcare professionals. We shouldn't double down on a system that's already failing patients and is already in need of reform. If you ask your doctor about Medicaid, they will tell you we need to reform Medicaid and fix it. We don't need to double down on a system that's failing people. I want to help Georgians have health insurance, and look at the Pennsylvania and Iowa model. That's something I'm taking a look at in addition to Senator Dean Burke's plan.
Representative Hilton, you're up, but that's a pretty good question. Let's let that roll on down to you. You just support Medicaid expansion? You already went through the first one? All right. Then how about, do you support our state's lawsuit to have the ACA overturned?
You know, I'll be honest, I'm not familiar with the lawsuit or having it overturned. I mean, I'll talk about healthcare in general. I serve down there on the healthcare committee, so we see a number of bills, and I've knocked on thousands of doors. And so the #1 thing I've heard is, Scott, healthcare is too expensive, and Scott, there's no healthcare transparency. And so one of the bills that we worked on this year, it didn't get through, I want to work on it again next year to get through, is some sort of healthcare transparency, so that when you go to the doctor, you know how much it's going to cost, you don't get a surprise bill when you have your services back at the end of the day. And so we need to get that done. We need to get that passed here in Georgia. There's also a lot of discussion around certificate of need. Georgia is one of the last few states that has that in place. We need competition in healthcare to drive down the prices and make it more affordable. So those are things in regards to healthcare that I'll be working on, and I'll be glad to answer the ACA question if you want to come to me afterwards, and I'll Google it and see what's going on.
Well, I am familiar with the lawsuit to undo the Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare, and I think it's terrible that our state is engaging in that lawsuit. Remember, the Affordable Care Act was the best feasible chance that we had to work within the private insurance industry and to rein in some of its worst abuses without destroying the entire system as it is. All right, we're talking about protecting people who have pre-existing conditions. I too have a pre-existing condition, right? Not only that, but the ACA is allowing your children to stay on your insurance plan up to the age of 26. There is a lot that we need to keep about the ACA, as well as amend those parts that are not working. Thank you.
Commissioner Howard, you're up. Why are we holding a special election in March for the transportation referendum at huge taxpayer expense?
Great question. I don't know if you know this, but September 7th was when the MARTA board signed the contract. It could not go on the ballot. It has to have its state election law that it has to be 90 days before the election, so we missed the time window of getting it on the ballot. The MARTA board tabled it for a month, and so that's why it happened on September 7th. There is a possibility of the school board having a bond referendum. I know that Mary Kay is here in the room, and so that would have been money coming from the school to go on the ballot, and now we will share it with the school board. And so the only other option was to do it in the next presidential election, and I don't think that that's acceptable.
So I was very disappointed when it was chosen to go in March instead of November. This decision was made actually before the deadline, before the 90 days, and there was no need to have it approved by the MARTA board before we could vote to have it on the November ballot. So that could have happened. Furthermore, that's a lot of money and a lot of extra time that's inconveniencing the voters. And we need to let the voters decide. This is an important issue, and we need to let as many Guanetians weigh in on this issue as possible.
All right, so we're back down here. This question is for Ms. Bordeaux. Ms. Bordeaux, please give us your thoughts on healthcare and medical marijuana.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. So, yeah, we have a lot of people in prison because of marijuana. And in particular, this law has been applied with tremendous racial disparity. There are a lot more people of color that we are paying for in prison because of pot. Basically, I'm a mother, so I see it as a mother would. We'll start at the top. I have no problem with medical marijuana. And I have talked to lots of folks with PTSD, veterans, people who have Crohn's disease and use it to help relieve those symptoms. And I think that should be fine. Additionally, I am not in favor of legalization, but I don't see any reason that we should be paying for people in prison because of marijuana. They can do community service, and there are other ways that we can deal with that issue. Thank you.
The biggest challenge we have in the medical marijuana space is being able to do the kind of research that is necessary to bring us together on this issue. I do support removing marijuana as a Schedule 1 so that we can have research done in the ways that we need to be able to do it. But as you heard in that answer, it realizes the fears that many of us have that this isn't a medical issue, this is a drug legalization issue. What we cannot have are some states deciding they're going to follow federal law and some states deciding they're not. The law is the law. Let's follow it or let's repeal it.
Ms. Errol, I think you're up. Will you fight for state subsidies so that school teachers can purchase guns and bulletproof vests at a discount?
Okay. I'm going to answer this as a mother. It does not make me feel safe to have more guns in schools handled by people. Or on our university campuses. Let me be clear, if teachers have guns in schools, accidents will happen. Those guns will not necessarily stay in their hands, they will get in other people's hands. Not only that, but I don't think most of our teachers want to carry guns. They want to teach their students. Thank you.
You ready, Jim?
I'm sorry, I just want to make sure we get all the questions that might be in the box up here.
Well, that one's easy for me. I was the one Republican senator 3 years ago that opposed guns on college campuses. Both Sally and I have the Distinction Award for Moms Demand Action Against Guns, primarily because of that. Look, I'm serving on a school safety study committee right now. In fact, we have a meeting, here's a commercial. It's Chamblee High School tomorrow at 10 o'clock if you can be there. Look, I don't believe we want armed teachers. What we need to do is put resource officers in our schools that are trained, okay, and arm those resource officers. Thank you.
Matt, I'm going to pass that question on down to you.
Sure. No, I don't do it.
Matt?
My mother-in-law is a teacher. Some of my heroes in life are teachers. They don't sign up to carry weapons and to defend their children. That's the role of government. The government should be there at the national level to protect our country. Here at the state level, we got to protect our kids in schools. We've got to harden those soft targets, make our schools safe. This Senate district is both North Fulton and Gwinnett. Our Gwinnett school system is diligently upping their security plans, which are already pretty strong. In North Fulton, it's been frustrating the elected school board members over there put together a $4 million school safety package, but the Fulton County system and with the issues they have, they said, we don't have enough money for that. So I'm talking to them. The local elected officials in Johns Creek want to extend what they're doing in conjunction with the Johns Creek Police by getting flexibility on East-Flost funds for school safety. I will be an advocate for school safety by law enforcement officers and other resource officers. Let's keep our kids safe.
Ms. Moore, we're going to keep it running. Same topic.
All right. Well, I feel like I need to preface any conversation about guns with saying that I live in a gun-owning household, right? My brother has just about every gun under the sun and has taught me how to shoot them. But even thinking about when I was a student in school and at UGA and Georgia State, having more guns on campus would not make me feel safer, all right? Some people use guns to protect themselves. For others, we are victims of gun violence. So we need to be smart about our gun policies. I support increasing school resource officers, like others here have said, using technology to keep our students safe. And I believe that if we invest more money in education to lower class sizes, we can engender better relationships between teachers and students so that teachers can look for problems before they start.
We're going to go 5 for 5 here. Heck no, that's crazy. That's crazy. No, I've got 3 kids. You know, one's in public school. I don't need his teacher running around with a gun. That's nuts. But all this is talk here. This is kind of rhetoric. Let's go back to what's actually been done. So this year, the General Assembly approved $18 million to go to school safety. $1 million that here in Gwinnett. Gwinnett's a leader in school safety. I've met with Alvin Wilbanks. They do a fantastic job. We have some of the safest schools here. And I need that. I mean, like I said, I've got young kids in school. We need that. We've got a study committee going on right now to look at school safety. They're going to come out with legislation. I guarantee you there's going to be more legislation in 2019. There's probably going to be more money dedicated to school safety. So this is real leadership, real results. We're getting it done for school safety, and that's action. So thank you.
All right, Mr. Koo, you're up. Do you support local election procedures that provide for a verifiable vote recount?
Yes, I'm very much in favor of verifiable results. One option is paper ballots, but there's also ways of doing receipts to make sure that you can see what you voted is actually what got tabulated, and you have a paper trail that can actually be verified. So you can go back after the fact to make sure the election results are real. We've had having issues with elections in various cities where you get 600% of the people voting, which doesn't add up. So we need to strengthen our election integrity, and that comes in the county. We need to be adding more resources to elections, adding additional voting days, adding additional absentee ballots, and making it easier for people to vote, not making it harder for them to vote. We have a great resource in our satellite voting days here in Gwinnett, where you can go to any precinct, any of the early voting locations, it doesn't matter which precinct you're in, and vote. And we should be able to do that across the state and across the county.
Having honest elections are the most important thing. I think it's what our country stands on, and we need to have, we need to verify everything. We need people at the polls volunteering that are honest and making sure that that our elections go well. We need them well trained. We need people that are watching the polls on both parties. We need participation in our elections. And I hope that we never find 600 voters that are anywhere in Gwinnett. We have 1 million people, and we owe it to every citizen to make sure that our elections are honest.
Okay, we're back down on this end of the table. Congressman, you're up. Topic concerns school loans, it's educational loans. What will you do to help relieve student loan debt?
The short answer is, if you sign that you're going to pay back that money, I think the first lesson we should teach you is that paying back the money you promised to repay is an important part of the American dream. The question isn't how can folks pay the money back. The question is, why are folks borrowing so much money to begin with? We've done two things at the federal level most recently. Number one, we've been working on career and technical education. Because everybody's not ready to go off to school at 18, but they don't want to say they're just going to take a gap year. They want to be involved in helping to contribute to the family. Career and technical education does that. We authorize in a bipartisan way billions of new dollars to help successful districts like ours continue to be successful. Number two, did you know that you're not allowed as a financial loan counselor to counsel young people not to take out all that money? In the name of letting young children be adults in school, we don't allow our financial aid counselors to talk them out of borrowing all that money. We just changed that rule in a bipartisan way in the House. We're hoping the Senate moves that forward as well.
As somebody who graduated with college with a lot of debt, some of you guys may know my family actually went bankrupt when I was in school, so I'm very sympathetic to students graduating with debt. In this district, the average debt for a student is around $26,000. I think we need to address this with things like Pell Grants, and unfortunately, our congressman has voted to cut Pell Grants for students. Georgia Gwinnett student body, 50% of them are on Pell Grants. And so it is a very important program. It is one of the many important programs in higher education that I support to make sure that every student who wants to go to college can afford it.
Senator Miller, you're up. Should non-citizens and illegal aliens be granted Georgia driver's license?
No, I would have to say no on that. I think you can have people who come in this country with visa permits that have the opportunity to do that. But I think voting is a privilege. It's, you know, the Constitution talks about things for U.S. citizens. And now, along those lines, I will say this. I am disappointed that we have not done much in the way of immigration reform. I think we've got, if it's 12 million people, whatever it is here, we're not sending them anywhere. They're going to be here. We need to figure out a way to make this work. And we talked about the DACA kids earlier. They've been in my office because I chair higher education. I sympathize with them. And absolutely, we need to educate these people because, folks, your philosophy is we've got all these people coming here with all these companies. We can't fill the jobs. So let's get our best and brightest, and let's get a lot of these kids also into our technical colleges. I've made a real push on career readiness. I first the first bill. It included dual enrollment so kids can take technical college classes and college classes while in high school. In fact, Sally told me her kids are doing that now, I believe. It's a great program. We put $60 million in it next year. So let's try and find ways to work with these people. Thank you.
I believe the question was driver's licenses. How many of you have been hit by an uninsured motorist? Okay. So when people are working jobs and contributing to our communities, they need a driver's license so that they can buy insurance so that we can all drive on the same roads safely. Thank you.
Mr. Reeves, similar topic, different question. Do you believe illegal aliens should be eligible for the Hope Scholarship?
I want to clarify my remarks on this subject by pointing out the question is illegal aliens. I'm running in a district where we have people who come here from all around the world, all around the country to live the American dream, and they have done it. I think an asset in our community is our vibrant immigrant community, and I am proud of the diversity that we have. It is an asset in our community, so we need to support our immigrants. On the issue of illegal immigration, when we have the HOPE grant and we have college tuition and the costs, the real costs that we've talked about tonight, I think we need to take those things into consideration. We need to make sure that people who have worked hard and played by the rules and gotten their immigration paperwork in, as well as our citizens, that they have college paid for. So my answer is no on illegal immigrants receiving the HOPE grant and other college programs.
I think you're up, Mr. Hilton. Yes, sir. What will you do to fund public education at the appropriate level so that teachers don't have to beg from parents each year for basic supplies for their classrooms?
That's a great question. So again, I serve on the education committee down there. I do want to highlight that for the first time ever since QBE, the formula was invented 33 years ago, we fully funded education in Georgia for the first time. Now that's exciting, but it's like, when we did it, I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, right? This is the first time, you know. So that's great, we give ourselves a pat on the back, but there is so much more we need to do. I hear from teachers all the time, two things. I don't have enough money for resources, and Scott, my kids, and I are getting tested and paperwork to death. And so those are the two things I want to go back and address, is let's get rid of all the insurmountable amount of testing that teachers have to deal with and the complexities in the classroom. Yes, and let's pay them what they deserve. You know, these teachers do deserve more. When they are educating our next generation of kids, they need to be paid more and more competitive. So that's my position on that. Thank you.
So Mr. Hilton mentioned that this is the first time in 12 years that our legislature has fully funded K-12 education, but if I was a teacher, 1 out of 12 is a failing grade. There is actually a constitutional amendment that is going to be on the ballot this November that will allow local school districts to be able to implement a penny tax for education. Think of it as an e-SPLOS. I would be in favor of that. Thank you.
Commissioner Howard, you're up. The question mentions MARTA, but the focus is, what are your priorities for transportation for our area?
Awesome question. Transportation is a lot of different things. We've been working on it really hard. We've worked on it with the legislature, we've worked on it at the federal level, and we worked on it locally. We just did our comprehensive plan for transportation. We did it for transit, and we also did it for our trails and sidewalks. That's important too, because we have a lot of people that could go and get to where they need to go without even getting in the car. So there's all sorts of different modes of transportation. We have to make sure that we're looking at all of them. We're being responsible, and we're doing it together. We all have done it together. We've done great. We set up the cities together. We can do transportation, we can do transit, and we can do trails together.
As my opponent said, there's been a lot of plans and plans to make plans about transportation. You can't hear me? Is that better? Thank you. So there's lots of plans, but we need to be doing more. We need to actually be doing things. The Connect Connect plan is a good start, but there are whole areas that are left out, like all around Lilburn. We need a network that can adapt to bottlenecks like the I-85 bridge collapse. We need to have a robust system where you can get around the county and have a useful system. And there are things we can do with our existing resources to do that now, and we don't have to wait for T-SPLOST or a special amendment.
Back down here at the end, Ms. Bordeaux. Should current and future presidential candidates be required, and presidents be required to release their tax returns?
Yes. Yes. Our congressman has voted against that. That's all.
It is fascinating the things that we decide that we can only get them done if we put them into law. I happen to believe that 300 million Americans are capable of making good decisions without laws telling them what information they must have and what information they mustn't. The president said he wasn't going to do it. The American people elected the president into the White House. That's the end of that discussion.
Hey guys, let's let the man answer the question.
My answer
right
here
here.
is unequivocal. Voters decide elections, not laws on what folks release. Voters decide American elections.
Ms. Harrell, you're up. What is your top goal for education in Georgia?
Education is a subject that's near and dear to my heart. In fact, it's probably the #1 reason why I decided to run for this seat. We have failed to fund public education adequately for an entire generation of children. Over the last 10 years, there have been $9.2 billion worth of cuts. Now, some of that is understandable because we had the Great Recession of 2008, but we were entirely, this legislature was entirely too slow to respond to a vibrant economy to start putting that money back into our schools. And now they've finally done it in the year of an election. I wonder why too. I do. So until we adequately fund our public education, we are going to continue to have problems. And I hear time after time people telling stories about why they've had to pull their kids out of public schools, and they're pulling money out of their pockets and their retirement system to pay for private schools. Thanks.
I've been involved in education for the last 20 years. I was one of the ones that campaigned for full-day pre-K, for example. I also worked in various and sundry programs to help young people. We did all the autism bills so these kids can learn how to read. Okay? We're now working on dyslexia study committee to help children. I promise you, money is not just the answer. We did fully fund education. Scott's right down there. But if money was the answer, the city of Atlanta schools would be the Harvard of the South. Okay? It's how you use your resources, okay? And you have to remember, all these things we want to do this and expand that, you've got to balance the budget. That's the one thing we're required to do at the Georgia General Assembly. Thank you.
Mr. Reeves, they're teeing up the questions for you. You're up.
Same question.
Same question.
I want to keep education funds north of 50% of the state budget. That's something we've done. I want to keep that state commitment to fully funding QBE. I want the Gwinnett County school system and across the river, the Fulton County school system, to be able to chart their own course and have the classroom, teachers in the classroom on the front lines, bottom up, local elected officials. I saw Dr. Mary Kay Murphy here. I want success to not have impediments, and I want the successful schools in our area to be able to be supported and to flourish. Think about the schools in the district. You've got Peachtree Ridge, Duluth, Norcross, the new Paul Duke STEM School, Northview High School, Johns Creek High School, Chattahoochee High School across the river. Those schools are succeeding, the middle schools and the elementary schools tied to them. I want to support the success of our local schools and be an advocate for our local public school system, and let's keep on fully funding QBE. And we do that through having a good economy. You can't pay for schools and healthcare and public safety and traffic solutions without being #1 in business. Let's stay there.
Ms. Moore, let's keep it going. You're
Yeah. And can you help us and restate the question?
Sure. What are your top goals for education in Georgia?
Yeah. Well, if you guys would believe it, we use a funding formula for public schools that was created when I was 3 years old. Right? And I know I look young, but believe it or not, Scott and I are only about 2 years apart. He just looks a lot older, right? So we do need to revisit our funding formula. We need to make sure that we are using our resources well. We need to make sure that teachers are paid appropriately so that they decide to stick around. So those would be my education goals. You know, I am a child of the Hope Scholarship. In fact, my husband and I both received the Hope Scholarship to go to UGA, which allowed us to then pursue our careers, to ultimately purchase a home. So there is no greater investment that we can make in Georgians than education.
And what I lack in beauty, I make up in brains. The State House ages you, I'll just say that. So this year I passed, so we have a lot of people down at the State House saying, I need more money, and more money's great, but that doesn't solve the issue. I passed one of the biggest education bills this year, House Bill 787, which provided you with choice. So I'm a big believer in that parents know best in the education of their children. Here in Peachtree Corners, we are blessed. We have fantastic schools. However, there are areas around Georgia where there is only one school and it is failing and it is not serving the parents and the students. I think we need to attract more schools to Georgia so that families with each kid that is totally different has a choice in where they get to receive their quality education.
Mr. Koo, you're up. County commissioners have to be leaders. They can't order things to be done. Tell us about your management style. Give us examples of how it's been successful.
Well, I stepped up to be president of my HOA when it was on the verge of bankruptcy. I had to work with a lot of different political views, but we worked together because there's a lot more that we have in common that we have that separates us. So I work with people, bring out their strengths, and make sure that we focus on our common goals. And make sure that we move forward using technology, using skills that I have available to me. I've been involved in the Gwinnett 101 Citizens Academy, and I'm on their Alumni Advisory Board. And I've been repeatedly asked to volunteer with Discovery High School and help mentor their people. I've mentored several students through the Georgia Tech Mentor Jackets program. So I like to lead and give guidance on a vision, and then let people all use their own special talents to get that job done.
Management style. I think the management style that I have that's strongest is from this room. UPCCA really trained me of how the whole group can come together. We make the best decisions together. We have the most open county as far as making decisions from the citizens of any county in Georgia. We have 159 counties, and so we do it the best in Gwinnett County. We have citizen advisory committees for all sorts of major important issues. So that's my style, but I do want to go back and say, if you fail to plant, you plan to fail. And so we had the best transportation department in the state, and we make decisions. And I'll also talk more about that.
Thank you. All right, back down here at this end of the table, Congressman, you're up. Would you support legislation to limit and identify sources of campaign money that is now quote-unquote dark money, i.e. unreported sources?
We don't have any of that in a congressional campaign, right? Every dollar that I get is reported. There is no such thing as an unreported dollar in my campaign. The only thing that folks could be talking about would be what comes under the First Amendment issue of, if you happen to have $1 billion, can you spend $1 billion like George Soros does, trying to change people's minds? Are you allowed to do that? I happen to believe in the First Amendment. I think you can. But that's going to be a voter issue. Do you believe that folks with more money can drown out all of us, who are the only ones who can vote? I worry less about where the First Amendment dollars are coming from. I worry more about why voters don't think, since we're the only ones who get to vote on Election Day, we get to make that decision. Now, I expect my opponent to outspend me big time this cycle. I'm not troubled by that. I'm not troubled by that at all. Money is not votes. Votes are votes, and that's the problem that we need to address.
I'm going to outspend you. All right, well, that's news to me, my friends. Let me just say, yes, I believe we desperately need campaign finance reform to get the money out of politics. We must end Citizens United. And I have been endorsed by them. And I have taken a pledge not to take any corporate PAC money. My opponent here has raised 60% of his campaign funding comes from PACs. This is unbelievable. The Koch brothers are saying they're going to spend $400 million to keep the House in the hands of Republicans. We must get special interest money out of politics. And as your congressperson, I will stand
Senator Miller, you're up. You know that
I keep looking for those names they're all talking about.
we know that District 40 covers a number of districts, a number of areas.
Yes.
What are your priorities for the people in this room in Gwinnett County and Peachtree Corners?
Well, I think the main thing, number one, I supported the regional transit plan. I think that's necessary. I'm glad that it's going to be on the ballot because I've always believed in people's right to vote. That's why you all have the opportunity to vote on cityhood out here. I think that's probably it. I also think you need to look at some tax relief to people. I think that's important. We've done it in some of the other counties whereby we've basically frozen the value of people's homes as respects to city and county taxes. Of course, you have no millage here, so the city is not an issue right now here. But certainly with the county, and you know, you don't want people losing their homes because their property taxes have gone out of sight. I've watched that. I live in DeKalb. I represent that's probably 75% of the district we're talking about from the standpoint of voters. And I've seen people that can be priced out of their homes, and that's not right. So I think in those areas, and I also think we talked about school safety, this kind of thing, but we need to do more things for the less fortunate. That's why I'm involved with this dyslexia. That's why I'm been involved with the autism. With PK Martin, we did coverage for kids that couldn't afford hearing aids to get them. How do you learn when you can't hear? So I think a lot of these family issues, if we're going to have another recession, we have, you know, an unemployment trust fund, and I made sure there's $2.5 billion in it for the next recession. So I think those kind of things can affect everybody out here. Thank you.
I've held quite a number of meet and greets throughout the community of Peachtree Corners, and it's a very educated community. And I think that by far the #1 issue that I've heard about is people do want good schools. And that's across the board. People who have kids want good schools, and people who own homes know that their home values are dependent on those schools being good. And I think you had it actually a little bit backwards, Mr. Reeves. Good schools bring in business. You need the infrastructure of good schools, transportation, and healthcare to bring in those businesses. It works in that order, not businesses taking care of our schools take care of our businesses. Thank you.
Same question for you, Mr. Reed. What are your priorities for the people in this room?
My priorities are our neighborhoods and our schools, our quality of life. I've been in Duluth the last 15 years, right down the road. I've been practicing business and real estate law at a law firm here in the area. I've been raising 3 kids. I want to make sure that Gwinnett County, 5 years, 10 years, a generation from now, is what it has been the last generation. It's something that is a great place to live the American dream. To come here, get your kids and grandkids educated, to be safe, to do business. I want to look after our quality of life, and that goes into our local elected officials having adequate funding and authority. I appreciate Mayor Mason being with me in this race, being pro-business, somewhere where working people and businesses feel comfortable and are coming here from around the country, around the world. Healthcare solutions, our schools, public safety and school safety, traffic solutions. That's something that I wish we had had more questions about, but I think we're all in agreement it's miserable and we need to get in there and do something about it now.
You're up. Let's keep the same thing going. I think it's a good thing because everybody is here. A lot of the folks are here are from the local community. What are your priorities for them?
I mean, for me, it's jobs, jobs, jobs. It's the economy, and I got to brag on our city because I'm so proud of our city and you guys and what's going on. We have right across the way here, even here, the incubator that's going on. It's starting new companies right here in Peachtree Corners. That's awesome. We have the revitalization of Tech Park that's driving new jobs right here. We've got the town center coming. So I mean, that's my thing, is we have got a great partnership with all the cities that I cover. It's Peachtree Corners, Berkeley Lake, Duluth, John Street, Norcross. And I want to partner with them to give them what they need to succeed, you know, whether it's economically or through schools or just the community in general. So it's that strong local partnership. I serve on the Intergovernmental Coordination Committee down there in the House, so I see a lot of the local bills that come through, and that partnership with cities is so important. So, thank you.
How many times have you talked to someone who said that they would love to be able to leave their job and start a business, but they could not afford to leave their health benefits? I'm a healthcare candidate because I am an economic development candidate. I think this is the #1 thing that if we get it right in Georgia, we can develop thousands of small business jobs, just like I am a small business owner. And as a small business owner, you know, the biggest expense that I could incur would be obtaining health insurance. This is something that we can solve. Other states have solved it, and Georgia needs to get on board.
Commissioner Howard, you're up. I don't think that question, I think that question tees up quite nicely for you and for Mr. Koo. I'd like you to answer it.
Well, probably the most important thing for all of us in this room, for businesses, for our homeowners, for everybody, is water. And water is a really, really, really important thing. I don't think any of us would care for having brown water coming out of our spigots. We have been great stewards in Gwinnett County. I don't know how many of you know about the F. Wayne Hill Water Treatment Plant? Okay, we got to go on a tour. You got to go find it. Because we purify water there, and we return water back to Lake Lanier, 30 million gallons of water a day that is cleaner than what we take out. And that's really, really important. That is the reason why the state is doing so well in the water wars, is because of the good stewardship that we're doing here in Gwinnett County. I learn all the time. I make sure that we have the best water that we're doing, the best innovation. And we have the Water Innovation Center getting ready to start, and I'd love to tell you about it, but I'm out of time.
Thank you so much. You are totally right. We have a wonderful water treatment facility here. So if you sign up for the Gwinnett 101 Citizens Academy, you'll learn all about it, right, Bessie? So my priority is that we have great water, and that plant is wonderful. But what we need to do is use that as the example, and that shouldn't be the only thing that we're known for. We should be leading in all sorts of other areas, like responsible development, like fully funding our safety and our police force. There's so many other things besides water that we need to address in the county, from transportation and using our resources more efficiently. So there's a lot to do besides water.
All right, well, we've gone through 6 rounds. Obviously, there's no possible way to ask all these questions, but I think what we are going to do is allow the candidates to ask each other a question. You're up. Go ahead.
All right. So, Congressman, you have voted at least 19 times to allow insurance companies to deny coverage for pre-existing conditions. Currently, there is a lawsuit that is being brought by attorneys general that would also end that requirement. This is a life and death situation for many folks to lose coverage for pre-existing conditions. I am confused. Don't you care about this, folks? Or are you just afraid to stand up to the leadership in the House and to the President?
Just a show of hands, how many think those are the only choices here? You're either afraid or you don't care. Those politics of division have been going on the Democratic side far too long. You and I don't know each other. What she said is not true. It is not true. How many of you have been in a meeting with me when I've said, you know what, President Obama led on abolishing pre-existing conditions, and I think he won that debate, and we'll never return to pre-existing exclusions in this country again? It is absolutely the law of the land today, and it has been. But what Carolyn would tell you is, if you vote to repeal the Affordable Care Act, which has destroyed the American health care system, and replace it with an invisible risk pool, like Maine has done, that ultra-conservative state of Maine, if you use Maine's model, which has served its people well, and you support that as a model for the nation, that somehow means you're either corrupt or you don't care. Don't believe it. That's politics at its worst from someone who's never even gotten elected yet. That's a rotten start.
It's your opportunity to ask Ms. Bordeaux a question.
Well, as I said, we've not met. In the 7 years that I've been in Congress, we've not worked on any policy together. We've not had any conversations about fixing anything together. I know a lot of folks in this room I recognize on both sides of the aisle as folks I've worked with to try to find solutions. You began with saying that you think Congress is corrupt. You went on to talk about the way that I run my campaign to suggest that I was part of that corruption. Yeah. Now, I will tell you
that should be a question, Congressman.
That John Lewis is a public servant of the highest order, and he raises more PAC money than I do every single cycle. Do you believe that John Lewis is corrupt for his fundraising practices?
I think we need to get special money out of politics. And that, period. And that is that. Yes, I understand that both people on both sides of the aisle play that game. But it is not the right game for us. What this means, right, is that our congressman is funded by PACs. He is funded by lobbyists. He is not funded by you all. And I think he should be listening to you all, not to PACs and special interests. The special interest money is corrupting every aspect of our politics. How many of you guys are seniors and pay too much for prescription medications? Yes. Our congressman has decided that Medicare should not use its purchasing power to negotiate better drug prices. My parents used up all of their discretionary income paying for medications. Why does that happen? That happens because drug companies pay $60 million a year to support congressional candidates. Our system is broken, and it absolutely must be fixed.
Senator Miller a question. We'll have a minute to respond. Thank you.
Those of you who are still standing back there, it's much better to be back there standing than it is here right now for this part of the forum. Senator Miller, earlier this year, the legislature revised the charter for Peachtree Corners. When residents raised concerns that the change was contrary to the city light vision, I'm told that you told them that it was a done deal. Is this representative of how you work to address your constituents' concerns?
That was a meeting of UPCCA, and we found out about a couple of years after the fact that we have a constitutional problem with the way that the law was drafted. And we were required to change the law and make sure that you cannot say you can only list just 3 services. You have to say that you provide all of them. Now, you don't have to do that. You can job them out. We didn't have a choice from a constitutional standpoint. That opinion was registered by Legislative Counsel. Okay, it was registered by another attorney. What we did, we went back, Scott, I believe you carried that bill. I passed it in the Senate, and we fixed the problem. Now, here's the deal. If someone wants to raise your taxes, and they're on your city council, but they want to do something you don't like, you have the opportunity to then vote them out. So I didn't ever tell anybody that particular comment.
All right, Senator, you have the opportunity to ask Ms. Harrell a question.
Okay, I have championed trying to get the state income tax reduced for a number of years. This year, the Republican majority did it. In the next 2 years, we're going to return $5 billion to the citizens of Georgia, the individual citizens. The gubernatorial candidate for the Democratic Party says she wants to repeal that income tax cut. And I believe you actually tweeted on one of your accounts, retweeted on one of your accounts, that tax cuts were scams. So my question is just a simple yes or no. If you happen to become the next senator for this district, will you vote to repeal the income tax cut for $5 billion?
I believe that income tax cut was because of a windfall that we were going to receive from the federal government because of the federal income tax cut. I've mentioned already that the public education budget over the last 10 years has been cut by $9.2 billion. What that translates as is that we have a lot of making up to do. We have a football field in the back of my kids' high school that has been banned from use because there are literally holes in the ground because the school hasn't had enough maintenance money to keep up with it. Our children have been riding on school buses standing in the aisles because there are not enough seats, because there's not enough money for transportation. I can see that it would make sense to make a big tax cut once we have filled those holes in our public education system.
My only question is, where was my opponent? You and I have something in common. We've come tonight. We care. This is the way citizenship and democracy works. You show up, you hash it out. You got it. Republicans, Democrats, and independents here. We've had discourse. I've listened. I've talked about what I care about. I want to hear about what you care about. Show up, listen, hash it out. Be an advocate for Peachtree Corners. You can't be an advocate for Peachtree Corners if you don't come here and do this. And I'm grateful for your time. You and I have that in common tonight. Thank you for coming.
Ms. Moore, you're up. You have a question for Representative Hilton.
Yeah, I'll take 2 seconds to let y'all know that Ms. Karen Shack is a civil rights attorney working on a major civil rights case, and I know that she regrets not being able to be here. There's one very important issue that we have not talked about tonight. That's perhaps an uncomfortable topic for some people here, and that is the topic of women's reproductive rights. Thank you. This is an area that, this is a topic that is very important to at least 50% of this room, plus many of the men who support women's reproductive rights. So my question to Mr. Hilton is, you have gone on record saying that you do not believe that a woman has the right to control her body under any circumstances when she's pregnant, whether that's a result of rape or incest or simply her choice. So I'm here to ask you, in front of these folks, if you can tell me, if I were to become pregnant, under what circumstances could I control my own body?
I guess the answer is real simple. I believe in the sanctity of human life. I believe we're all born in the image of God. You know, this issue is personal for me. We have a child with a disability. He has Down syndrome. The abortion rates among that population are incredibly high. I couldn't imagine life without my son, and that drives a lot of my policy decisions. So I appreciate the question.
Representative Hilton, you have the opportunity to ask Ms. Moore a question, so please do.
Yeah, no, I've knocked on 1,542 doors, and so after we talk about Trump, we then talk about the current political environment. It is incredibly divisive, and they say, Scott, will you please help us turn it down? And I say, you know what? I've worked across the aisle. I've gotten stuff done. I don't care if you have an R or D. If it's a good idea that gets the community going forward, let's do it. So in that vein, I'm gonna ask a fun question. What's your favorite movie?
Thank you for the fun question. I appreciate that. You know, the first movie that comes to mind is Forrest Gump. I think that is an incredible tale of somebody who had every disadvantage in life, but still was able to achieve, you know, incredible results and have an incredible life. And I think that everybody in this room, you know, no matter what circumstances you've been given in life, that you can have an incredible life as well.
All right, Mr. Kuhn, you can ask Commissioner Howard a question.
Yes, you mentioned earlier that we had the best transportation system, but then Gwinnett was also not good at the bus system. Why has it taken so long to address this issue of the growing congestion and traffic that we've had in Gwinnett? And specifically, what can we do to improve transit in Gwinnett in the short term, as well as should the referendum not pass?
Wow. Okay. So, transit in the bus system, it costs money. It costs a lot of money. These buses are very expensive. We get federal dollars for them, and we've done the best we can. But we do transportation better than everybody. I don't know how many of you have find potholes in your neighborhood and in your when you go to and from work. We try to address them quickly. If you go to any other jurisdiction, you won't find that. So we do it very well. We have worked over and over again with the federal government to get more buses, to get more, but we also have to make sure that we're good stewards of our citizens' money. I don't know if you know this, but we are one of 36 counties in the country that has a AAA bond rating. And that's a AAA bond rating from all of the rating agencies in the country. And so that makes our buying power a lot better, and it will help us with making sure that our transit going forward in the future is the best.
All right, Commissioner Howard, you have the opportunity to ask Mr. Kuhn a question. You'll have a minute to respond.
Before I was commissioner, I worked with this group, and we worked on eliminating a Lowe's that was going to go right in the middle of our community. And we have the Forum. How many people know of the Forum? It's a wonderful thing. We also have a ramp that's going double up from 141 onto Peachtree Industrial. That took with the cooperation because it's a state road. So I would like to know, before you're commissioner, what are the projects that you have worked in with the community in your area?
Well, as I said, I stepped up to be president of my HOA when I was on the verge of bankruptcy, and we worked together, and we were not only saved it from bankruptcy, but we were able to grow the reserves every year since. We've actually also worked with the developer of the new property right next to us, and worked on a win-win situation where we got the community involved and the developer involved to have the developer actually listen to our needs. They made a lot of concessions that helps the neighborhood, and in return, we've also gotten the developer to invest in our neighborhood and give us a lot more matching dollars and investment of resources so that the whole area can be better. And they, we went through the board, and it was the first time they said they had ever had it where both the community and the developer were in unison. We went together, presented a plan that worked for everyone. And I want to see more of that in the Gwinnett County Commission. Typically, the commissioners almost always side with the developers, and I want to see more representation of the people in the communities to make sure that we have responsible development, that we don't have unchecked, overgrown development.
All right, guys, that concludes the question and answer part of our session. We have closing statements. Each of you will have 2 minutes.
I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. I want to apologize to my Republican colleagues. I called the wrong coin flip, and elections have consequences. I was elected. Don't make that call. We're all paying the price. Elections do have consequences. And I want to tell you that there are two methods that we can go forward in this country. We can go forward tearing people down, or we can go forward building people up, just as a show of hands. Who's got on one Republican sticker and one Democratic sticker tonight? Who's sitting on both sides tonight? That's the division that we're working with in our country. And I will tell you, I'm very proud with your voting card. that when Paul Ryan got to choose just 4 members of Congress to serve on a bipartisan committee to solve some of these challenges, he picked me because of my reputation of working across the aisle. He picked me because of our reputation of getting things done. Don't let it be said that the only way to win elections is to tear people down. It's not true. Information is important. We talked about campaign finance a little bit. It's true. Rather than ask you for money through your campaign contributions to me, if you work for West Rock over here, you give West Rock money and West Rock writes that check to me. Every penny I receive comes from you. On the other side of the aisle, OpenSecrets.org, I would argue, is one of the better places to look for information on campaign finance. Only 3% of the money my colleague here has raised has come from in this district. More than half of the money she raised in the primary came from outside of the state. That doesn't make her corrupt. That doesn't make her bad. It just makes California and New York incredibly interested in how we decide this race this year. Unemployment at the lowest levels in my lifetime, youth employment at the highest levels in my lifetime, small business optimism at the highest level in my lifetime, people leaving their jobs in search of better opportunities more than ever. It's not easy for folks to do, but it's easy to turn that off. Let's keep that going. Thank you for lending me your voting card for these years. It's been an honor to serve you.
So I appreciate the Congressman and his idea of people coming together. I have spent a lot of my life working in very bipartisan fashion. However, I think we've come to a time where certain truths have to be spoken. And I'm going to start with one of the big ones, which is that in this district, there are 110,000 people without health insurance. Our congressman has voted, I say at least, because there's so many votes, it's hard to count them all, 19 times, to repeal the Affordable Care Act, to eliminate coverage for people who have pre-existing conditions. And his proposal to change that would allow health insurance companies, it would require them to cover pre-existing conditions, but they could raise the rates so that people with pre-existing conditions couldn't buy it anyway. His bill would have added 30,000 more uninsured in this district to the 110,000 I said before. I am here to take a stand to ensure that every man, woman, and child has access to quality, affordable health care. I believe in this district we have a soul-sucking commute, and I am here to be a strong advocate for transportation options and transit. I believe that we deeply value education, and I am here to take a stand to increase funding, to invest in our children so that they are able to compete on a global stage. I am here to take a stand against a president who I believe is corrupt. I think he should release his tax returns. I think the Mueller investigation should be played out. And I am also here to take a stand against the special interest money that is corrupting our politics and I believe has corrupted the votes of people like our congressman, unfortunately. The money I have raised has been from individuals like you all, chipping in to make this campaign work. I ask for your support on November 6th. Thank you for being here.
Senator, you're up. Senator, you have 2 minutes to close tonight. Senator, you have 2 minutes tonight.
I'd like to continue part of the topic that Rob brought up. I think my whole career has been involved with bipartisanship. There's a reason this particular election. I've been endorsed by the former Democratic CEO of DeKalb County, Leona Levitin. Okay? A direct endorsement, direct quote. I've got a quote for about bipartisan support, okay, from Mike Thurman, because we did tax relief and infrastructure improvements together. Together, he and I got the legislation through the General Assembly. I mentioned earlier that I've been endorsed by all of your elected officials except one council person. And I think there's a reason for that. My whole career, I can remember I got an award early on from the NAACP. Now, how many Republicans got one of those awards? For my role to change the Georgia flag. Okay, I've done things that involve bipartisan issues. Yeah, I took a stand on campus carry. It was easy for me. I thought the bill was stupid. I still think it's stupid. But I stood up because I stand up for what I believe. And look, the bottom line is this. Yeah, I've got a bunch of awards, the physical therapy people, the Georgia Chamber of Commerce, and XYZ. But here's the thing that matters. Can you get things done? Can you solve problems? Can you get solutions and get past the sound bites? Now, nobody can dispute. When Governor Deal's got over 60% favorability rating with Democrats and Republicans together, because we did cut the state income tax. We did fully fund education. President Obama lauded him for our criminal justice reform. He just met with Donald Trump up in the White House going through that particular program. We did a mass transit bill, a regional transit. Go ATL, and Marta could possibly become a governor because you're given the opportunity to vote. So look, not past the sound bites, not past the slogans, effusive promises that aren't going to happen. I'm not going to mislead people because some of this stuff ain't going to happen and everything can't be free. It has been my honor to serve your interest for the last 8 years. I hope it can continue. Thank you very, very much.
Sarah, 2 minutes.
Let me say first that I personally heard on the Decatur's podcast, Mr. Michael Thurman himself, CEO of DeKalb County, say he did not endorse Senator Fran Miller. We are polarized. We were also polarized the last 2 years I spent in the state legislature when we were moving from Democratic control of the majority to Republican control. I found it helpful during that time to focus on what my own values were. I brought with me tonight this yellow card. I wrote it during my last term in the legislature, and it sat on my desk and it guided me. It says, these are my core Democratic values. These values are the same values that guide me today. And I'm going to share with you what those values are. And the first one is that there is a positive role for government. And that role is to ensure that an economy that's based on maximizing profits does not trample basic human needs. Folks, we have people dying now because they have been left out of our healthcare system. We need to elect people who have the political will to fix this. Secondly, my second goal is that everyone who lives in a civilized society, no matter their economic status, should be treated fairly and equitably. Our statewide public education system is not equitable. And as I've said before, during the last 10 years, we've cut billions of dollars out of the education system. I find it disingenuous that my opponents finally, in an election year, did not cut the education budget and calls it fully funded, and then goes on to call himself the education senator. Every child should have access to a safe and quality public education. Finally, we need to concentrate more on the greater good. Like Eisenhower developed our interstate highway system, we need public transportation. I commit to you that I will follow these values, and I ask you to think about your values when you go to the poll and vote on November 6th. Thank you.
You have 2 minutes.
Thank you so much for your time this evening. You and I came here today to look at several races, and one of them was who can serve Peachtree Corners the best in the Georgia State Senate. I appreciate you spending the time on that question today. I hope you've learned a little bit about my principles and what I care about, and I've learned a lot about what you care about by the questions, and I thank you for it. I believe there's no government spending program any better for a person than a job is. I believe there's no government spending program any better for a child than a family is. I think that state government ought to do a few things and do them well. We've talked about those tonight. Our schools, our public safety and school safety, our traffic solutions, our education, and getting opioids and human trafficking and gangs out of our community. That's something that we didn't get to tonight, but we need to support public safety in that area. I'll be pro-business and pro-taxpayer. I see my friend Lewis in from Duluth. When he was running for council, he highlighted the issue of we ought to look at tax cuts for teachers, and people talk about that for veterans. I want to be pro-taxpayer and pro-business and keep our priorities on those important things we care about. After I graduated from Mercer and the University of Georgia Law School, I came to this community. I'm glad it's better now than it was when I got here years ago, and I want to make sure our future is bright. That's why I want to go down to the Georgia State Senate and to serve you, to serve Peachtree Corners, and to be available for you, and to hash out issues, get bills passed that Peachtree Corners wants passed, and get bills defeated that Peachtree Corners wants defeated. I want to be in the position to help and to be effective. There's been questions about endorsements tonight. There's no question that U.S. Senator Johnny Isaacson supports me. Mayor Mike Mason, easy for me to say, endorses me, and I appreciate those leaders. I want to support our locals. I trust the locals, whether it's schools, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's our elected officials, our school board members. I trust the locals, and I hope to earn your trust. Take a yard sign on the way out if you support me. I'd be honored to talk to you tonight and get your support. Thank you.
I love you guys. I love this community. That's why I've served in this community for years before I was even an elected representative. I didn't run for a title. I didn't run for who's in the White House. I ran for who's in your house. And that's who I care about. Not who's in the White House, but you. And there's a lot of noise and a lot of hype at the national level. But let's look at things, what's going on here in Georgia. Georgia's the #1 state to do business. Georgia's one of only 9 states with a AAA bond rating. We just did the largest tax cut in Georgia history. It is now easier to adopt a child here in Georgia. By all measures, Georgia is on the right track. And I've just been honored to represent you and be a part of that, and be a part of that success. And what does that mean for us here locally, our community? Let's bring it back here. We're seeing better jobs, wages that are growing higher than the national average, education in a vibrant community. And that's what I'm about, and that's what I want to bring to you. We need to rise above the political rhetoric and get things done. And that's why I'm down there, to get beyond all that and to fight for you. And there's still work to be done. We've talked a lot about tonight about healthcare. We've got to fix healthcare at the state level. Transportation, we've made big strides with the regional transit bill last year. There's still more to be done. Education, by all measures, we still rank at the bottom half of the states. There's more work to be done with our teachers and students. And I would like to go back and do that and work hard for all of you in this room. So if you're looking for someone to rise above the rhetoric, to get things done, I urge and ask you to vote for Scott Hilton on November 6th. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here tonight and for caring about these issues so much. My first foray into politics was in 2008, when I went on CNN during the Obama-McCain election year to advocate for my then chosen candidate, Barack Obama. In that debate, I had the pleasure of debating against a Republican who was there supporting McCain. That Republican and I have now been together for 10 years and married for 6. And I can definitely say that my husband is voting for me. Thank you, Mr. I tell you that story to tell you about the type of person that I am. I am not a super partisan, but I see a problem that has only gotten worse over the past 2 years, and that is why I stood up, along with the thousands of other first-time candidates across the country, many of whom are women. Okay. We are not an anti-Trump party. We are a pro-healthcare party. We are a pro-public education party. We are a pro-public transportation party, and we are the pro-economic development party. And all of those things are intertwined. And those are the values that I'm going to take with me down to the Capitol. My name is Beth Moore. I'm running as a Democratic candidate for House District 95. You can find more information about me at moreforgeorgia.com because Georgia deserves better. Georgia deserves more. Left, so I will say early voting starts October 15th. You can vote for me on November 6th. And I do want to thank everyone on this panel, whether you're an elected representative now or you're a candidate. It is really a hard job being up here, but it is worth it, and I look forward to serving you down at the legislature. Thank you.
Well, I want to tell you that I ran on Together We Have a Voice. It's what I started with, and it's what I am. I still continue. Together we do have a voice. And the county is really important, the taxes that you pay. And I want to also let you know that I ran as the candidate that has, or not the candidate, I did run as a candidate. I was a planning commissioner that had the least number of red shirts. And a protesting red shirt in the zoning, as many of you have gone through, means a lot. And the reason that I don't have red shirts is because we work together as a community with developers, we work with the homeowners, we work with businesses, we work together to get the best development in the county. We have some incredible development that's here in District 2. And so I'm so glad that Davida, you were able to go to the meeting, that Davida and Alan Mendenhall, who's in the back of the room, I worked on getting that meeting together. Yeah. There you go. He's a great developer. And we have great developers like that that have vision. How do we do things together that make it so that our kids will be proud to live here? The Masons have their son that moved back after he had his living everywhere else, but and doing his career and building it, but he wanted to come back here and raise his family. So I want to tell you that the reason I got into politics is because I care about my kids. Pat and I chose to live in Peachtree Corner because we care about our kids. And I just want to thank a few people, because there's many of you that I need to thank. But I have Diane Gornell and Colleen Fong in the front. They went and I can't tell you how many times they've shared how to grow plants and picking out seeds. When my kids were really little, they went with frog boots. And Debbie Mason took my son to kindergarten to find out what Simpson was all about. And I have several teachers. Madam Wheeler, she taught my daughter French, but she also taught her all sorts of life lessons, as well as I want to thank Pat Bruschini. My son wouldn't have gotten his Eagle Scout without her.
Well, first off, I want to thank the UPCCA for hosting us all here, and thank you, Jim, for moderating. And thank you all for staying so late. 20 years ago, Google didn't exist. Gwinnett was less than 500,000 people, and I had already created some of the first websites on the internet. Now, we have supercomputers that can fit on our wrists. Gwinnett is almost 1 million people, and yet there's still politics as usual in the county commission. We can't keep playing by a 19th century playbook and expect to compete in the 21st century and beyond. We need a transit system worthy of a major metropolitan area. We need to fully fund our police force and make sure that we restore the trust and cooperation with our communities. We need to support our officers and our public servants, our seniors and our students, our businesses and our communities, so that we can work together to improve Gwinnett. We need to utilize our existing resources more efficiently and lead by example by upgrading our transportation, representation, and communication. I have unique skills and a perspective that does not, and frankly has never existed on the Board of Commissioners. There's a big difference between using technology and creating it. I've already started affecting change and breaking records in my candidacy. Just last month, I created a website, myvoterpage.org. It is a useful, voter-centric tool that allows you to identify quickly which of the 39 candidates on your November ballot care about the issues and values that are important to you as voters, not what some third parties cares about. So my name is Ben Koo, My website, last name is spelled K-U, it's simple, 2 letters. My website is ku4u.com, all spelled out. And together, we can work together and upgrade Gwinnett. So thank you very much for being here.
Guys, thanks to everybody. Thank you guys. I mean, I love doing this. It's so fun, and y'all always treat everybody who gives their time and effort with such dignity and respect. I really appreciate it. Let's thank the candidates. I know they worked so hard.